I've paid thousands of dollars in courses to learn what you're basically teaching on your podcast for free. What you're putting out there is so valuable. So, I just really want to acknowledge you, and I definitely send everyone to your podcast.
You were virtually one of the first mentors that I looked up to and started following. You're always one step ahead of the game. So I just wanted to give you kudos and props for that, because lots of people are watching, lots of people are learning from it.
Tucker and the whole TTM crew, Dan and Chris, thanks so much for your support. I love what you guys do, and a huge, huge fan. Having this support's huge. So I'm grateful for that.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Real Dealz podcast. And of course, as always, I'm your host, Tucker Merrihew. I've got another episode this week that's just you, me, and my mobile microphone here in my molester van. Hey, I've got a great show coming up next week, another interview show. Had an awesome interview show last week with my man, David Martinez. If you guys did not check that out, make sure that you go check it out. That dude is a cold calling beast, and in terms of actual practitioners out there doing the thing, as in being in the real estate trenches every day, creating leads, talking to sellers, nurturing leads, turning leads into deals, that man has got it down to a science, and he gave away some gold on that show, so make sure you go check it out. This week's show, I've had a bunch of coaching calls, as many of you probably know. We've got our REI Deal Generator program that's been going awesome. It's been just an amazing experience, not only for myself, but also for my partner, Justin Silverio, to really connect with the students that we have in that higher end program one-on-one, to really figure out what it is that people need in order to kind of get over the hump and build a business that is successful, more specifically a real estate investing business that's successful in a time that can be a little challenging because there's so much competition, and you're just kind of running into a lot of roadblocks these days. And so it's been not only a great experience, I think, for those that are a part of it, but also for me and for Justin to see the challenges that people have, and the different types of challenges that different types of people have in going from the starting gate to success in this business. So anyway, I wanted to dive into kind of a topic that wasn't necessarily on one of those calls, but it plays into the type of business that we're trying to build for the students in that program versus another type of business that another one of our I won't call them students, but mastermind members I had a conversation with, and we kind of aired out what the type of business was that he has been building versus the type of business that he is running. And they're two different things, and I'm not dissing him by any means. I think it's just a great topic, and I think it's one that a lot of people can get a lot of value from in terms of talking about. So anyway, as far as the REI Deal Generator program, we are going to start opening up slots for our second round sometime in October, so keep your ears peeled for that. And we want to wait and until we open the doors for that to prove to you guys that we made some magic happen with the first round, and we're pretty close to making that happen right now. And by the time October rolls around, we open the doors, we'll have a lot of proof for you, and that way you guys can see that we put our money where our mouth is. Now, so the bottom line is this week's show is going to be all about, are you building the type of business that you actually want? And I want to strip away all the noise out there. I want to strip away all the glitz and glam. I want to strip away the shiny ball syndrome of this is what your business should look like because I'm so cool and I'm on social media and I do 1 million deals a month, and that's what you should all aspire for, right? And if that's what you want to aspire for, that's fantastic. That's awesome. But you need to go into this thing eyes wide open, and you need to understand what type of business you personally are best suited to run when it comes to real estate. And so I really want to dissect that because I think it's a very, very important topic, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people fail. So anyway, we're going to dive into that. Now, before we get into all that, a couple things. Number one, housekeeping items. First thing, our Driving for Dollars app. If you have not already, make sure you go download it. Number two is we are beginning our enhancements of the app, which is fantastic. Not only now does it give you all the information that you need to effectively market to homeowners, you go build the list, as big a list as you want for $19.99 a month. Gives you who owns it, their mailing address, their mortgage info, when they bought it, and of course, their phone number. Now, it's batch phone numbers, folks. It's not TLO. That's why it's $19.99 a month. The batch phone numbers will run you somewhere between 50 and 60% accurate. That's the way that it works when you run batch API phone numbers. So if you want a 100% hit rate, you can pay $1 per pull, and you can get that with TLO or a similar provider. But trust me when I tell you, we run our entire business off the app, and a 50 to 60% hit rate when you're building big lists is plenty. And if you really want to, you can take your A+++ leads and you can scrub them against TLO. That way you keep your costs down, and you can make sure that the number's right if you're getting an undeliverable. But for the most part, you can build an entire business without any real hiccups off of a 50% or to 60% hit rate. So just understand that. I think sometimes people kind of take that out of perspective, and they don't realize the tremendous value that the app provides for $19.99 a month. So just think about that a little bit, and make sure that you build big enough lists that you're actually going to be able to move some weight when you start marketing to it. If you're building a list of only 200 people that you're marketing to, it's just not a big enough subset these days. So anyway, bottom line is go download it. It's called Driving for Dollars app. Number 2, if you guys are interested in joining our online mastermind groups, we have our DFA Launchpad, which is for those of you that are just finding the podcast, just getting into real estate investing. Reach out to us, and Dan can hook you up with a nice package deal to get into that, and you'll have access to not only all the educational material on how to get started, but my entire team. Then, if you have a business, you're cruising along, you want to take it to the next level, you want to rub virtual shoulders with people like myself, my entire team, Justin Silverio, Elliot Smith, Ryan from Call Porter, David Martinez, who was on the show last week. We've got just tons of amazing people that are doing awesome things all across this country. And Artem, if you guys listen to the show on Artem, he's building multi-million dollar multifamily projects all over the Los Angeles and Hollywood area. And so you have direct line access to these people. You can rub virtual shoulders with them, and you can be a part of our amazing community. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us, and we'll see if we have room in your market. One little side note that I want to mention about mastermind groups, because a lot of people over the years I've seen have come and gone in some groups, and there's that mindset that a mastermind group is purely about learning everything that you can and then leaving. And that's what a lot of people do. And if that's what you're going to do, that's fine. That's your business. That's how you want to run your life. That's how you want to approach things. That's fine. But the true values, because there's multiple values that you get out of a mastermind group, it's twofold. Number 1 is the information that you can get right away as being a part of it. Number 2, part 2 of part 1 is the ongoing information that you can get, and consulting and advice on demand from practitioners that are doing things at a high level, almost instantaneously via our online Facebook group. But number 3 is the community aspect, right? This is kind of a lone wolf business, and it can be a little bit lonely at times. And so the whole idea behind joining a mastermind group is the fact that you have a family, you have a group, you have people that you can communicate with on a daily basis to kind of bounce ideas off of, and feel like you have business partners without giving them half the profits and without giving up your decision-making ability. So there's really a value there that I think is overlooked by not everybody, but there's a small percentage of people that really overlook the value of community and being a part of a community like that when you're in such a lone wolf type business. So just wanted to put that out there, and hopefully that resonates with some of you guys so that you can recognize that there is that whole other value component that is often overlooked. Now, beyond that, like I said, we'll be opening up the doors for our next round of REI Deal Generator students sometime in October, but I'll keep you posted on that. Now, what's up with me and TTM over the course of the past week? Well, I'll tell you, we've had a bunch of stuff go on. Number 1 is we went on another appointment this past week, and we've had like this bumper crop of crusty old landlords that are looking to now sell their properties. And I think the reason being is because the market's pretty ripe, and they obviously want to cash out on their essentially slumlord type properties. And so they've actually now been responding to all of our marketing that we've been sending them for years, really. And we went on another one, and this one was an interesting one. told you about the guy that I fired last week because I just couldn't fucking stand him. He was just an asshole. And so I said, screw it, I don't even want to do business with this guy. But we one-on-one this past week, and the guy was actually a decent guy. He wasn't nearly as much of an asshole as the previous, but they all fall into the same bucket. They all have the same type of personality. They all have the same personal grooming habits, which are poor. The same sense of style, which is also poor. I don't know what it is about old school real estate guys, but this guy that we picked up, he didn't even have a car, which seemed odd to me. But he owned all this property, and as we're driving him around, I basically was a chauffeur. I picked him up in my new molester van. Chris rode in the back. He shot some footage. Maybe we'll leak it out here over the course of the week on our Facebook page. We'll see. But we're driving around. He's like, I flipped this. I made this much money. I've got this much money. I own these properties. I own this. I own that. All this money, but he doesn't have a freaking car. On top of that, he's got ear hair longer than probably most of your wife's hair, which is like, come on, man. We all look in the mirror every day. You got to see it, right? I mean, how do you not see that much ear hair that's got to get trimmed? And number 3 is he didn't have any of his bottom teeth. So at some point, his bottom teeth decided to leave the party. And he, with all of his properties and money, didn't think, maybe I'll go to the dentist and get those replaced because I kind of look like a crackhead when I'm walking around with no bottom teeth. But for whatever reason, he either doesn't have dentures or doesn't care to get some type of plate or something put in so that he can actually have teeth when he opens his mouth and talks to you. So, interesting conversation. The guy was very much proud of his portfolio and his real estate prowess, we'll say. Not sure there's a deal there. We'll see. There were 2 houses on what could be 3 lots. And, I don't know, maybe we'll buy it from them at some point in the future. But my point here is that it seems like these old, crusty real estate guys, they're all the same. Like, they all have the same personality quirks. They all have the same poor grooming and dressing habits. They're like the Velcro guys, right? Sweatpants and Velcro guys. That seems to be a good way to describe old school real estate guys for the most part. Now you get into that, maybe higher end commercial guys, maybe they're a little more groomed, but these kind of lower end, single family residents, slumlord type is basically what it turns into, because they don't put $1 back into their properties most of the time, or if they do, they kind of go over and Johnny homeowner it. They're just the same type of guy. And so anyway, little observation, thought I'd lob that out there to listener land. Maybe you guys have had the same experience. Definitely something we've been seeing over and over and over again. Beyond that, we've got a bunch of stuff going on, bunch of stuff in construction. We'll be finishing up 3 or 4 houses in October. We got one pending that we sold, I think I mentioned to you guys, in 48 hours at $1.6+ million, which is pretty damn impressive given the market conditions right now. And, we've also got, 2 more new construction and renovation project that we'll be putting up in October, all with pretty fat margins. And, of course, we've got a new acquisition that we'll be closing on this Friday, courtesy of Ironbridge, actually. They're lending us money on it. Cool little side note with them. I know we've got a ad for them on the show, but they legitimately are solid dudes, and they run a great operation. But they've got a really cool program within their program where they actually have like a preferred insurance provider. So as I'm getting all the documentation in order for them to send out loan docs, they actually are able to put insurance in place for you on your flip properties. That's pretty reasonably priced insurance. I mean, it's about as cheap as you're going to find for, rehab vacant type homes. So anyway, they automatically do that for you. It's just another thing that you don't have to worry about or deal with. And then you're adequately covered in case shit happens. So kind of cool, but we're busy on the construction side. We've got a new renovation that we're picking up this week. Probably be a quick turn and burn. That's the hope here. We're going to sell with value, like I mentioned in a couple podcasts ago. We're just going to clean it up, paint it, landscape it, and put it out to market. It'll be dated and clean, and we'll put it out with some bang to the buck for the buyer for all the square footage, and that should be quite a little hit based on where we're at in the market cycle and just kind of creeping in on the end of the year and the whole, we'll call it holiday season that eventually slows down sales. So anyway, that's what's going on with me and TTM over the course of the past week, amongst a gazillion other things, but it's the Cliff Notes version. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the show.
All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I've personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did.
Alright guys, main topic time, and here's what I want to talk about this week. I want to pose the question of, are you building the type of business that you're set up to handle? Or better yet, are you building the type of business that you want to be set up to handle? So here's why I pose this question, right? There's a lot of noise out there with kind of the build a big business, high volume, lots of mail, lots of overhead, lots of different positions within your organization. You've got, acquisitions manager, lead manager, dispositions manager, manager to manager, manager's manager. You got all these things, right? And really what it boils down to is the fact that you're sending a shit ton of mail out and doing a shit ton of marketing every month. And so if you're going to do a shit ton of mail and marketing, you have to have enough people in place to really make sure that you wring every dollar out of every possible viable lead that comes into your business. And when the leads come in, you're going to have your low-hanging fruit that you can just kind of snag, make money with, no problem. And then you're going to have the other leads, which is most all the leads, which is a very slow and longer sales cycle where you have a touch, a conversation, maybe a soft pass on price, a follow-up later, a follow-up later, a follow-up later, a revisit on site, a contract deal, boom. So that could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 month, 18-month process, right? It's a long sales cycle for a lot of leads. And so the problem that I see is that a lot of people don't think about the type of business that they want to run before they start the marketing machine. And so what I mean by that is that if you're going to come out of the gate and you want to make the phone ring, right, which we all do, we want to make the phone ring, we want to get leads coming in the door. But if you're going to drop a ton of mail and you don't have the pieces in place to be able to extract the deals that are within all of those leads, and I'm not just talking about the low-hanging fruit, I'm talking about the leads that take time, that have a long sales cycle. If you don't have the people in place to help you with that, you're really just wasting your money. And I see a lot of people doing this, and they're sending out a lot of mail because that's the mantra out there, is that, you send out 10,000, 15,000, 30,000, 50,000 pieces a month, whatever it is, and you get the phone to ring and you do all these deals and you're making all this money. Well, here's the reality, right? if you want to run that type of business and you want to send out the, let's call it 25 to 50,000 mail pieces per month, you can do that. But remember that is the hamster runs real fast on the wheel, and you've got high operating expenses, and you've also got high revenue, right? So let's say you're bringing in $500K in revenue. Of that $500K in revenue, you're bringing in, or you've got probably $350,000 in costs for mail costs, overhead, labor, whatever it might be. That's what you're looking at. That's the reality of that business. So you are spending a lot of money, you're doing a lot of marketing, you're talking to a shit ton of sellers, you're filtering those sellers, you're taking the low-hanging fruit off of the table, and then you're having to nurture what's left for a sustained amount of time in order to convert those leads to deals as well, so that your cost per deal isn't just like astronomically high. Now here's the problem, right? If you jump straight to mailing that kind of volume without having the people in place to help you kind of sift, sort, and figure out, okay, which ones are the low-hanging fruit, which ones are the longer sales cycle, without having those pieces in place, you really are setting yourself up for failure, because you're going to end up spending a lot of money, you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you're going to hopefully be able to extract the low-hanging fruit deals that come in, if you can keep up with it at best, because you're going to be kind of a one-man band and you're going to be kind of doing everything. But beyond that, you're not really going to be able to capitalize on much. And so there's going to be a lot that slips through the cracks. You're going to be spending a lot of money. You're going to be doubting whether or not this business really works or whether it's worth it. But the reality is that you're running a business that you're not set up to run. So I want to take this back to the beginning of the conversation here. And before you get enamored with the idea of, guys on Facebook or Instagram or social, whatever, talking about all these deals that they do every month and all this mail that they send, you really need to look internally and decide, okay, what kind of business do I want to run? Do I want to have a business that's heavily staffed, or at least is staffed sufficiently enough to be able to handle that type of marketing volume? Because it takes a staff. Now, some people are way overstaffed, in my opinion, when it comes to that, but it still takes a staff, and with the staff comes obligation, and that obligation is financial obligation for them, their families, their livelihood, right? Their opportunities. You got to be able to provide opportunity for them. And so I don't think a lot of people think about that fully and are ready for that, yet they want to jump straight to that model to get the phones to ring. So you really need to figure out what type of business you want to run. And so, in my opinion, there's really two different types of businesses. You're either in the buy it to retail it business, or you're in the buy it to wholesale it business. And you can do both, but it's hard to do both. And so what I would suggest is that if you're going to do both, you grow into that. And what I mean by that is that if you're getting into this business because you want to buy stuff direct from seller, get it at a solid discount, much better than you'd get otherwise buying on the RMLS or at auction, so you spend a little bit of money on marketing in order to get a much bigger discount buying the property and retailing it, start there, right? Start as a small operation, start as a manageable operation between yourself and the leads that are coming in, and then maybe you have some help with the construction side. That way, you can manage all your lead flow, but you're also not sending out 25,000 pieces a month, right? You don't want to get to a point, or 50,000 pieces, whatever it is, where you're spending all this money and now you're stressed out trying to recoup this money, but you alone are trying to get through all the leads. You got to think of this as a snowball, and you grow the snowball with time. And I've mentioned this on a previous show, but I don't know that it maybe resonated as well as it should, or either way, if it did, it's worth repeating, because as you get into the direct mail game, you get into the direct-to-seller marketing game, think of it as a snowball. That snowball starts small. You don't want to jump in pushing this giant snowball, because what comes with that is a lot of other baggage, other responsibilities, other financial obligations that you may not be ready to take on. And so there's nothing wrong with starting the snowball small, and as you get momentum, and as you get traction, and as you get lead flow and deal flow, you build off that and you increase the volume of marketing that you're doing, whether it be direct mail, PPC, RVMs, text blast, whatever it might be. You increase the volume as time goes on and as you're able to absorb it, and as you also get better, right? Because you personally have to be good enough at talking to sellers, dealing with situations, understanding transactions, before you can ever possibly train somebody to come in and help do that without making an absolute mess of it, right? So my whole point here is this. Think about the type of business that you want to run. I don't want to run a high volume business. I just don't. I run a medium volume business because that's what we do. And we keep in retail virtually everything these days because it's just, we're set up to do it. And so we don't have to crank a high volume wholesale machine where we're spending tons and tons and tons of additional money every month on our marketing in order to get more leads coming through of stuff that we don't want to buy that then we'll wholesale. It's just not the way that we're set up. If we were going to do that, we'd have to staff up a little more, and we'd have to, to be able to accommodate and really take advantage of the lead flow that's coming in that isn't now because of the additional marketing spend. So you got to figure out, where's your happy place? What type of business do you want to run? For us, it's a high margin, slightly lower volume type business. And now, if you're in a market where you need to do higher volume and smaller margin in order to get to the revenue goals that you need to do, then so be it. That's what you got to do. But point is you need to go into it eyes wide open, and you should start small and grow into it. So that way, as you're taking these incremental steps towards increasing your marketing and increasing your responsibility in terms of overhead and other people's livelihoods, you're ready for it, right? So one part of the business matches the other. The amount that you spend on marketing matches the amount of staff and help that you have in order to convert that marketing. So really think about that, but more importantly, think about, what type of business do you want to run? Just because somebody's on Facebook and says that they're doing 20 deals a month doesn't mean that that's the right business for you. It might look real glamorous and cool and awesome and making all this money, but the reality of that business is they're making some money for sure, but they also have a ton of monthly obligation in terms of spend. And so, it's kind of a double-edged sword. And so you can't get one without the other. And so I think people forget that. So bottom line is this: before you dive into the deep end and you start, blasting out a ton of marketing, really think about the type of business that you want, number one. And number two, the type of business that you're actually comfortable running at this point in your real estate adventure. We all grow over time as business people. We can all take on more responsibility, more other people's livelihoods, more overhead. We can absorb that as our businesses grow. But you don't want to go jump into the deep end right away. And if you do that, it's a surefire way to really expedite the failure process. And this whole concept is basically how we're running our REI Deal Generate program. We start you small and we grow you incrementally as you get better and as you kind of understand the process and as you get more mentally aware and able to deal with more and take on more responsibility, both with leads, deals, people, overhead, obligations, all that. So think about that. It's a very crucial thing. A lot of people kind of they fire first, aim second. You really need to aim first and fire second when it comes to building the type of business that's right for you. You can always change it down the road, but start smaller, then grow bigger. Don't start huge and then try and scale it back, because that's a lot of the times the people that just kind of do their tour of duty, we'll call it, in the direct seller game, and they say, screw this, it's not worth it, it stretches me out, I'm not getting a return on my investment, and at the end of the day, it's just not what it is that I want to do. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this. Hopefully it made a bell go off in your head, ding, something like that, and resonated with you. And you can hopefully take this advice and use it as you're moving forward and you're building your real estate investing businesses. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode and my take on how you guys should build your business. Now, I've got a closing success quote for you that kind of encapsulates me looking back on my career and the conversations that I'm having with a lot of folks that are trying to come up within their career and giving the advice to them on how it is that they should navigate those waters in building their business. And so this week's quote, I think, ties in nicely, and it's by Mr. Warren Buffett. And the quote is, "In the business world, the rear view mirror is always clearer than the windshield." I like that. And it makes a lot of sense, right? If you listen to those of us that have built our businesses, you can kind of learn from what it is that we stepped in along the way, the challenges that we faced along the way. Take that information. You don't have to necessarily run with it completely, but put it somewhere, recognize it, and utilize it when you build the business that you want to build. All right, guys, this is the Real Dealz Podcast, signing off for this week. I'll see you all on the next one.
I'm looking for a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. I need a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. You want this money, then you gotta be a bad bitch. Shake that ass for the tip if you a bad bitch. Drop it down to the floor if you a bad bitch. Oh no, she ain't a hoe, she just a bad bitch. I'm in the club looking for a bad bitch. In the parking lot looking for a bad bitch. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to find that bad bitch. You know me, I gotta keep me a bad bitch. Freak in the morning, freak in the evening. I'm looking for a freak when I'm done block bleeding. Now take me to a house, tease me, then please me and tell all her friends how the dick made her sleeping. Believe me, when I'm up in that, I'm beating it, giving y'all that Mike Jones treatment. I can tell by the way she walk that she got it. Body so deadly, you can tell when she drop it. I'm either gon' hit her, I'ma be assed out. I seen it walk by me, damn near passed out. Then crept up behind her, told her it was time to let a player like me get in that vagina. I'm looking for a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. I need a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. You want this money, then you gotta be a bad bitch. Shake that ass for the tip if you a bad bitch. Drop it down to the floor if you a bad bitch. Oh no, she ain't a hoe, she just a bad bitch. She a ghetto ass bitch with some ghetto ass game. In the club where she work and she poppin' that thing. Say the bread keep the fed and the head at the bone. She can never breathe on a nigga dick and make him come. Come on. Where them hoes like to get bucket balls. If they can't take off, they draw. I ain't standing there, nigga, no. I love the way she dance, she look like she fucking herself. Shot ain't doing nothing but just touching herself. Freaky ways, she can shake ass for days. Getting kinky in 69 different ways. Jump on stage, she get paid, sing old off. They got enough money, she taking the clothes off. Look at that, I thought I told her put it tag. I did, thought I put it tag. I'm looking for a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. I need a dime, that's top of the line. Cute face, slim waist with a big behind. You want this money, then you gotta be a bad bitch. Shake that ass for the tip if you a bad bitch. Drop it down to the floor if you a bad bitch. Oh no, she ain't a hoe, she just a bad bitch. Move like you got something to prove. Keep running your dick, sucker, hoe you gon' lose. I don't wanna hear about your motherfucking blues. I'd rather see your ass clap in them shoes.